This video is going to look at how we can use Mockito argument matchers. First, we're going to understand when we might want to use argument matchers, and then the second part is going to look at two demonstrations. First, we're going to look at how we can verify, and then secondly, how we can flexibly stub different method calls using Mockito argument matchers. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more weekly videos on Java, do subscribe. So if we take a look at the class that we'll be testing, it's called booking service, and it connects to a booking repository, which is the database layer for our application. It has this method called byTicket, which accepts a string called showID. Then it will create a new string called ticket showID just down below by appending the word ticket at the start of the showID. And then using that new ticket showID, we create an instance of a ticket class, which is very simple. It just has the showID inside. And then using that ticket instance, we'll call the bookseat method. The bookseat method down below will connect into our repository, and we will just check if that show or that seat is available. And if it is available, we'll update the database in theory and return true. Otherwise, we return false. So our booking service will allow people to buy tickets by first checking the repository and then returning true or false. So now we can look at how we're going to test both this method byTicket and bookseat. So argument matchers are used for verifying application behavior and also for generalizing the stubs that we pass into our mocks. So with this in mind, I'm going to set up the test class to use Mockito. So I've created a spy of the booking repository and also an inject mocks version of the booking service that will then use the booking repository. If we head back into the booking service class, we can see the byTicket method, which is what we're going to write a test for first. So if we break down this method, it takes in the showID as a string. We have this ticket showID, but we're not too concerned on what that string is going to be returned as, because we can write a test specifically for this createTicketShowID method all on its own. This string is then used to create an instance of a ticket, but once again, we're not too concerned about the string that is being passed in or the ticket that is created. What we want to test within this method is that it's calling this bookseat method and that it is passing in an instance of a ticket to that method. And we want to isolate this behavior away from the string of ticket showID that is created and the new ticket instance that is created using that string. So if I move into the test class, we can now begin writing our test for the byTicket method. So to begin, I've created a spy version of our booking service and I've called that booking service spy. And then I've called the byTicket method, just passing in any random showID. So by calling the byTicket method, we can now verify against this bookseat method that will then later be called. I'm then going to use Mockito verify using the booking service spy to verify that the bookseat method has then been called. So when it comes to verifying the bookseat method, we're not particularly concerned on what instance of the ticket that is being passed or what the ticket showID is going to be. All we really care about is that any ticket instance is being passed into the bookseat method and that it's being done by this byTicket method call. So this is the first instance where Mockito argument matchers can be really useful. And we can use it by first typing in any and then the class of the argument that we would like to verify. You can now see that I will import the any method call from the Mockito matchers library. So now when we're verifying that the bookseat method call is being made, we're verifying that any type of ticket instance is being passed in and any ticket showID of that ticket is going to be existing. Therefore, the method logic of createTicketShowID is no longer relevant to our test. Now the second test I want to write is for the bookseat method of our booking service. And the bookseat method will accept the ticket, it will connect to the booking repository using the getSeats method, And the getSeats method at the moment will just return an empty array list. However, in reality it will be returning a list of strings which are the available seats. We will check that list if it contains the ticket show ID from the ticket we're passing in, and if it does, it returns true, otherwise it returns false. So I'm just going to write a pretty basic method for how this will work. So at the top I've defined a string called ticket show ID with ticket:ID1, and I've created a new ticket instance. I then created a list of strings which are all the available tickets, and it just contains one entry which is that same ticket show ID. So when we call our booking repository and we call the getSeats method, passing in ticket ID _1. So if we go here and we call ticket getShow from ID, what we're doing is replacing the colon with an empty string. So that's why we don't have that empty string here. It will always return this list of available tickets, which of course contains the ticket show ID just above. So actually when we call booking service book seat and we pass in that ticket with the same ticket show ID, it will always return true. So let's run this test. And we can see the test is passing, so it looks great to us so far. The problem, however, we have is a slight dependency on this getShow from ID method that replaces the colon with an empty string. Let's say the logic in this method changes and we replace a single colon with two colons. Now if I run this test, it would actually be expecting the value passed in to include two colons like this. However, it doesn't, so this test will now fail. We can see it's now failed. So Mockito argument matchers allow us to flexibly stub our method calls. So to extract the logic from this method here, getShow from ID, we can actually just say we don't really care about what string is being passed in. We just want to make sure that this list of available tickets is always returned from this booking repository. And we can flexibly stub this method call by calling any string. So now whenever we run this test, no matter what string is being passed into the getSeats method of our repository, it will always return this same list of available strings, and therefore when we're testing our book seat and we're passing in this same ticket ID, we will always expect it to pass. So we can see how argument matchers allow us to flexibly stub certain method calls, and it doesn't have to be just a string. There are many different types of flexible stubbing that we can apply. So we can see any string, any object, any boolean, byte, char, any double, or any int, and the list goes on. And I'll leave a link in the description for you to check it out for yourself. And that summarizes this video on how argument matchers can be used to flexibly stub a method call, and also how it can be used to verify method calls to extract some of the irrelevant logic from our application code to allow us to isolate certain tests and to verify and mock certain behaviours in a much more controlled way.